Hey folks, welcome back to my podcast. Today we are going to talk about Khabib Nurmagomedov. Khabib is one of those rare names in mixed martial arts that doesn't just belong to a fighter. It belongs to a story that feels bigger than sports, bigger than championships, bigger than the cage itself. When people ask why he became so famous, why he felt so different, why so many call him unstoppable and unbeatable, I think you have to start by looking at the kind of man he is, the kind of foundation he came from, and the way he carried himself in an era where almost everybody was selling themselves as loud, flashy entertainers. Khabib didn't need gimmicks, he didn't need trash talk, he didn't need stage drama. His fighting spoke louder than words ever could. From the very beginning, you saw a guy who carried his father's values into the cage. Khabib Nurmagomedov wasn't just a coach, he was a man who built a system, a philosophy of discipline that turned Khabib into a machine of control. You can't talk about Khabib without talking about that foundation, that discipline that was burned into him in Dagestan, in those mountains where life is hard. The training is brutal and respect is non-negotiable. Khabib didn't just show up in the UFC as some random wrestler, he came in as a finished product of a culture that demands toughness. He was molded by an environment where weakness gets exposed quick and only the hardest survive. That gave him not just skill but a mindset that was almost alien compared to the show business atmosphere of modern fighting. When you watch Khabib's fights, you realize quickly that he doesn't fight the way most fighters fight. He doesn't chase knockouts, he doesn't throw wild haymakers to please the crowd. He closes distance with absolute composure, takes you down, and once you're down it feels like gravity has increased. That's what fighters always say. It's like a weight pressing down that doesn't give you a second to breathe, and that's part of why he feels unstoppable. Most fighters can hurt you, most can finish you, but very few can make you feel like you're drowning every second you're in there. Khabib did that to elite athletes. He did it to strikers, to wrestlers, to champions, to legends. And the reason he felt unbeatable wasn't just that he won, it was how he won. He didn't scrape by with decisions that could have gone either way. He dominated, he smashed. That was his word, smash. And that's exactly what it was. It wasn't just victories, it was domination. When you're talking about why Khabib became famous, that's a big part of it. The dominance was undeniable. You didn't need to be a hardcore MMA fan to see it. Casual fans could see it. People who didn't even understand wrestling could see this guy was on a different level. The way he mauled people wasn't subtle, it was primal, it was overwhelming, and it was simple enough that anyone could recognize it. That made him stand out in a sport full of close fights. Another reason he blew up was timing. Think about the era he rose in. The UFC was leaning into the entertainment side, especially with Conor McGregor's rise. Trash talk, bravado, press conferences, wild insults, bottles flying, that was becoming the norm. And then you had Khabib, this stoic, calm, disciplined man who didn't play that game. He didn't insult to sell tickets. He just promised to dominate. And when he got into that cage with Conor, the biggest star in the sport, and smashed him in front of the whole world, that moment cemented Khabib forever. That fight was the perfect storm. It wasn't just a fight, it was cultures clashing, values clashing, and when Khabib won, it was like the martial artist defeated the showman. That victory turned him from just a fighter into a global icon. But let's go deeper. Fame and legacy aren't built only on win. They're built on character. Khabib had this aura of being unshakable. A man who never compromised his values, never let money or fame change him. He was respectful to his opponents after fights, humble in victory, always referencing his father, his family, his people. That's rare in sports where egos balloon out of control. People connected with that. Even if you didn't understand Dagestani culture, you could feel the authenticity. You could see that this man meant what he said, and he lived by it. That makes you famous in a deeper way, not just as a celebrity but as someone people look to as an example. And when you ask why he felt unbeatable, you can't ignore the technical side. His grappling system wasn't just wrestling, it was a hybrid. A unique style of control that even the best wrestlers in America couldn't handle. The way he laced legs, the way he trapped arms, the way he used the cage to pin opponents, it was suffocating. He didn't just take you down, he took away your will to fight. Guys like Michael Johnson, who had incredible speed and knockout power, looked helpless. Dustin Poirier, an elite striker and submission artist, said he felt like he was drowning. Justin Gaethje, one of the toughest men alive, said Khabib's pressure was unlike anything he'd ever experienced. These aren't average fighters saying this. These are killers, champions, elite fighters, and they all sounded broken after fighting him. That's how you build the aura of being unstoppable. Another piece of the puzzle is his mental strength. Fighting isn't just about physical skill, it's about mentality. And Khabib's mentality was forged in a place where excuses don't exist. You can see it in the way he never panicked. You never saw Khabib rattle. He got clipped. He got caught in a guillotine. He got pressured at times. But there was never a sense that he was breaking. His composure was unreal. In a sport where adrenaline, nerves, and chaos eat fighters alive, Khabib was a rock. That calmness is intimidating. Opponents feel it. When a man across from you doesn't flinch, doesn't break, doesn't even seem nervous, it shakes you. And that's part of why he seemed unbeatable. When people talk about why Khabib is so famous, you also have to mention that he represents something beyond himself. He represents Dagestan. He represents Muslim athletes. He represents discipline and respect. That makes him more than just an individual. He carries an entire community with him, and that makes people invest emotionally. His fan base isn't just UFC fans. It's people from all over the world who see him as a symbol. That kind of fame is rare. It's not manufactured. It's not PR spin. It's real human connection. Then you add the fact that he retired undefeated. In a sport as chaotic as MMA, where one mistake can end a fight, where legends almost always lose eventually, that record is mythical. Nobody does that. Even the greatest fighters usually end with losses. Scars on their records. Khabib walked away perfect. That makes him feel untouchable. It adds to the myth that he was unbeatable. Because there's no footage of him broken. There's no highlight of him unconscious on the canvas. There's no humiliation. All you have is dominance. That cements the image forever. The way he retired also added to his legacy. He didn't chase paychecks. He didn't stick around too long. He didn't become a faded version of himself. He retired at the top, honoring a promise to his mother after his father passed away. That's powerful. That shows you again the kind of man he is. That choice made people respect him even more. Because walking away is hard. Fame, money, power, it's intoxicating. But Khabib showed that values come first. And that's why people love him. If you want to understand why he was unstoppable, think about this combination: world-class skills, unbreakable mentality, authentic values, and a foundation of discipline that never wavered. You put those together and you don't just get a champion, you get a figure who feels inevitable. He didn't just beat opponents, he crushed doubt itself. That's why people still talk about him like a force of nature. And the fame, that grew because every fight felt like an event. Not just for the violence, but for the story. Watching Khabib wasn't just about who he'd beat. It was about seeing that philosophy in action. Seeing that discipline overcome chaos, seeing that control overwhelm wildness, and fans could sense that they were watching something historic, something that might not be repeated. That's why he's not just a UFC fighter, he's an icon of combat sport.
And when you look back on Khabib's career, the thing that really stands out isn't just the wins or the domination, it's the sense that we were watching something pure. In a sport that so often gets wrapped up in marketing angles and personal feuds, Khabib represented the essence of martial arts. He was discipline in motion, respect embodied, humility wrapped in absolute ferocity. That's what made him so fascinating, because he showed the world that you could be both a warrior and a man of values at the same time. And you didn't have to compromise one for the other. There are a lot of fighters who become famous for being controversial, for creating chaos outside the cage. Khabib didn't play that game, but he still ended up being one of the most talked about athletes in the world. And that tells you something. It tells you that authenticity is more powerful than hype. When fans saw Khabib, they believed him. They believed his discipline. They believed his seriousness. They believed his commitment. That kind of trust is rare, and it's one of the reasons his fame felt so massive and so genuine. And think about what it means to be unbeatable. In MMA, nobody escapes unscathed. Everybody eventually meets someone who has their number. Everybody has an off night where they get caught. Everybody eventually fades with age or mileage. But Khabib left before that happened, and because of that, the idea of him being unstoppable stays intact. People can argue all day about how he would have done against different opponents, or whether someone eventually could have cracked the code. But the truth is, nobody ever did. In the record books, and in the minds of fans, he's the fighter who walked away untouched. That's a powerful myth, and it's going to last for decades. I think one of the things people admire the most is the way he honored his father his entire career, his discipline, his mindset. It all came back to the lessons Abdulmanap instilled in him. And when his father passed and Khabib still came back to fight and then retired with that emotional tribute, it was one of the most human moments we've ever seen in the sport. It reminded people that this wasn't just about violence or championships. It was about family, about legacy, about keeping your word. That's the kind of thing that turns an athlete into a legend, because it connects with people on a level deeper than competition. Now, with him retired, you can feel the absence. You can feel that there's a gap, because nobody fights like him. Nobody carries themselves quite like him. There are incredible fighters out there today, champions who are carving their own paths, but Khabib's shadow still looms large because what he did was so unique. That's why you hear his name brought up in every pound-for-pound conversation and every GOAT debate, even when people are talking about divisions he didn't fight in. His impact stretches beyond weight classes. So when you ask why Khabib became so famous, why he seemed unstoppable, why he's remembered as unbeatable, the answer is layered. It's the dominance in the cage, yes, but it's also the values outside of it. It's the way he carried himself, the way he represented his people, the way he lived his words. It's the fact that he walked away perfect, undefeated, leaving only questions and no answers. It's the aura of a man who not only fought with skill but lived with principle. That's why when people talk about Khabib, they don't just talk about a fighter, they talk about an ideal. And that's why years from now, when people look back at this era of MMA, they're going to say that Khabib Nurmagomedov wasn't just another champion. He was something else. He was a once-in-a-generation presence who reminded the world what martial arts really mean. And that's why in so many people's eyes, he'll always remain famous, unstoppable, and in a very real way, unbeatable.